Happy New Year, Bill Winslow and Alisa Winslow here with the Winslow Group and Coldwell Banker Schmidt Realtors. We want to give a quick recap of 2022, what happened in the market, what we think is going to happen, or some predictions, I guess, on forecasts for 2023, as well as touch on why people are still moving to Northern Michigan. So Alisa is sort of our chief statistician, really gets into the numbers. Alisa, you want to give us some key takeaways or some key points on 2022, which proved to be a pretty strong year for real estate here in Northern Michigan.
And maybe stronger than what we originally expected. And I have a lot of stats I could talk about and really nerd out here, but I'm going to just key in on a few that I think are really important that you may not understand. As hot as the market was this last year, one key stat that jumps out is unit sales activity was actually really way down. So in fact, in Emmett County, it was down 19%. In Charlotte County, it was down 19% as well. So almost a 20% decline in the number of transactions that actually booked in the residential home space in our Northern Michigan market this last year. And that's something that we're seeing as a national trend as well. But it's not all doom and gloom because, like we said, the market was still pretty hot. Our business, we saw that same trend. We went from 80 transactions in 21 to we're going to finish, I think when it was all said and done, around 55 transactions for 2022. Our sales volume, though, was up year over year. And we see the same thing in the market. We saw price appreciation still happening right through the end of November in 2022. In fact, the market as a whole for Emmett County was up almost 20% year over year, 2022, in home values, which is pretty substantial. That was Emmett County. Charlotte was a little bit less, but a still really solid 11%. What's really interesting is the number of new listings, and that explains how you can see transactions fall off the way they have and prices go up. New listings really declined last year. So just taking a look at the numbers in Emmett County in 2021, there were 802 new listings that hit the market. 2022, 660. So that's an 18% decline in Emmett County. Charlevoix was very similar, a 15% decline. So what we had is we still had really solid demand, but we had increasingly low inventory, the same thing we've seen since really 2019. And it really kind of kept the market really performing very well despite the impact of recession, inflation, and interest rates.
Yeah, I think realtors might have felt the squeeze a little bit more since transactions were down. I still think buyers are definitely felt that squeeze in 2022. We've had some really good buyers that we've been working with that have just been struggling because there's been these continued, although we're seeing a decline in the competitive situation to some degree. As we talk about 2023, it's very hard to predict the future, but the number of competing or multiple offers on a property seems to have declined. That's a stat that's almost near to impossible to exactly track because you can't tell. But we're still seeing many listings come on the market that are still proving to be very, very competitive. And as you said, I think in December, we did start to see a decline. There is some seasonality to our market that historically has been the case for decades. We are entering a slightly slower, we'll do another segment on sales per quarter, but things do slow down a little bit this time of year, but it is a much more year-round market than many people would believe.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So overall, though, you would say that it was a pretty solid year and maybe better than what we expected this time last year.
Yeah, I think that sellers that sold were probably very pleased with the prices that they got. We still did a great list to price sale ratio this year. I think there's a fair amount of buyer frustration out there. I think that demand, we're going to talk about that here in a minute, but that demand for Northern Michigan is still there. And with listed inventory down, even with rates rising, Northern Michigan, I think, resort markets are still a little bit of a unique market that is maybe an outlier to the rest of the country.
Yeah, I think so too. So shifting gears then and looking at 2023, we want to talk a little bit about predictions. And you've been in this business for
22 years now.
22 years now you've been in the business. So you've been through downturns, you've been through all types of markets. And I want to just lay out the stats and then have you kind of tell me what you think that means for what's happening in Northern Michigan. So we really have only started to see the shift in the market that's been felt nationally in our market in the last month. And actually things are still pretty solid overall, but there's been some declines in some key metrics. The first one is that appreciation that we talked about is slowing a little bit. We actually had negative price appreciation this month for the first time in the last several years. Now, it was only down 1% in Emmett County. It was down 2% in Charlevoix. And when you're talking home sales in December in Northern Michigan, you're dealing with a much smaller pool of numbers. So it's not incredibly statistically significant or anything to get nervous about. But it is the first time we haven't seen like double-digit appreciation comparing 1 month in 2022 to a month in 2021. So it is significant. Prices are holding strong though, right? Because we still have that limited supply. I think the most concerning stat that I saw was days on the market. So days on the market, that's how long it takes from the time your listing goes live to the time it's actually booked at the title company. That time frame has been coming down every single month as inventory is sold off, new inventory comes on and sells quickly. And that number went down in Emmett County for the first time. Again, a small figure, small numbers, but the first decline that we've seen in a while, down 8% in Emmett County.
Down or up as far as days on the market?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Thank you. So days on the market are actually up.
Yeah. So it's taking a little bit longer to sell your home now.
It's an 8% negative change in that. Yes, it takes a little bit longer to sell your home. What I would say is days on the market is a little concerning. Again, small numbers, so not something I would lose too much sleep over, but we are seeing days on the market increase by about 8% as of December.
Yeah, we'll put out a written report, market report here probably by the end of the month that'll give more specific details. But I think the year over year, if we even do a decade study on days on the market, traditionally this market was always running 6 months or so for a property to be sold, has been significantly down. I want to guess off the top of my head what the number was.
It's in the 50s or 60s, depending on the market that you're in. And in November, it declined to like below 40 for the first time ever.
Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of cash offers, a lot of multiple offer situations that are really driving that days on the market time, the days down. And now we're seeing that shift, which again, isn't concerning. If 180 days was, say, historically our average, I like to see a little shorter time frame. I'm sure sellers like to see a little shorter time frame than that historic average. But if we move up from 50 to 80 or whatever, it's still, I'd still call it a very, very healthy market though.
Mm-hmm. So thinking about what the Fed is predicting, so they say that they're going to continue to raise, but we're seeing that it's impacting inflation positively, right? So it's working. And a lot of people don't know this, but that's really what sets mortgage rate. It's not like the Fed sets the mortgage rate. The Fed sets the discount rate, and the discount rate then moves the mortgage rate, because if it's working, if we see that CPI, that consumer price index, adjust because of the Fed behavior, that's when you see mortgage rates start to decline, because it's like, okay, Fed, you're doing a good job. The economy is not going to, inflation is not going to go through the roof. We think that we can expect to return to some sort of normal, and we can risk lending our money out at this rate instead of a higher rate, because we think that inflation is going to slow down. So all that being said, most economists are predicting that we get to somewhat normal again, in the 6 and 7% range is still relatively low compared to like in the 80s, right? Still decent interest rates, but we're used to 3 and 4%. Economists are saying we're going to be in the 5s, maybe even south of 5 by the end of spring, early summer. We know that that's in large part though because there's some recessionary pressures, so that affects overall buying power. Taking all this together, the trends that we're seeing what's happening in the economy. What do you think is going to happen to the housing market in Northern Michigan?
It's tough to predict the future, but I think it's still going to continue to be very strong for a lot of the reasons that we've laid out before in even the pre-COVID, but certainly the post-COVID world, where people are looking for a smaller community. They're looking for more nature, more outdoor activity, just more space in general. So obviously COVID shut down the big cities, shut down the West Coast, shut down the East Coast, where here in Michigan, while very tough regulations, you could still get outside, you could enjoy the bay, you could go hiking, you could do all sorts of stuff with your family. And I think that has just sort of shifted the mentality a little bit of the country as a whole, that they are valuing these smaller resort markets. And I mean, there's a ton of things that were already sort of preemptive of that, of the work from home environment. COVID just, I mean, rapidly increased that. So we are getting people from Texas, California, even Colorado. I don't know why you want to leave Colorado, but people from Colorado, people from the South that are relocating here permanently because now they can work from home. So I think that trend is going to remain. There are some employers that are saying they're bringing people back to the office. I still see sort of this hybrid work from home. A lot of jobs are still going to work from home. You worked from home for a big bank for over a decade. I think that trend is here to stay. We might see it shift back a little bit, but I think it's here to stay. And so with all the stuff we've talked about as far as Northern Michigan, from the activities, the schools, just the general community, I think the demand is going to be here. That demand is going to, despite interest rates, is still going to exist. We've had a very small percentage of buyers that have said, well, I'm just going to wait. I think most people have, they understand that life can be short and precious, and why wait, another 3 years or 4 years or 6 months. That, if you find the right property or the right opportunity to make a move, people are doing it, regardless whether it's the winter time or the spring or the fall.
Especially if you can refinance.
Exactly.
Right?
We'll bring a lender on eventually one day to talk about that. But certainly if you can refinance, why would you wait?
Yeah, I think that's really well said. So overall though, would you agree? So there's a supply and demand mismatch that will continue to kind of interact together, right? So rates come down, there's more buyers, that increases demand. We still have limited supply. Prices go up, maybe prices people out of the market. I would expect there'd be this little bit of a dance going on. Do you expect any kind of major market correction, or do you think we're getting back to sort of a more normal market?
I would say a more normal. I don't foresee prices, any kind of dramatic drop. I think you had talked about price appreciation was up 78% anyway. So even as if values were to drop a little, it's almost irrelevant, other than opening some opportunities for some buyers. So I think there'll be some more opportunities for buyers. There might be a little less, maybe because of interest rates, but I think the demand's going to stay here. I somewhat predict a similar year as we had last year, maybe similar in units, down from 2020 as far as units, but probably similar along that same dollar volume. So up a little bit on dollar volume, flat on units. I think it's an opportunity for buyers. It's still a great time for sellers. We just have, it's certainly a Michigan thing. I think it's a nationwide thing, is inventory. And we'll do another podcast on that. But so that's my prediction. What do you think?
I think I completely agree. I think we're getting back into a more normal market. That 78% that he talked about is actually the appreciation that we've seen in Emmett County since 2018. That's 5 years, right? And it's substantial. I mean, you're talking about coming close to doubling what you paid for your home if you're selling. So a little bit of a correction might feel like the sky is falling, but it's not, right? So there's still going to be sellers that can sell. The market corrects a little bit or normalizes a little bit, that will still do really well. And to Bill's point, buyers are going to do better in this new environment as well. But what it does mean for you, if you're a seller, is you can expect your home to take a little bit longer to sell. We think less time with us than our competitors, but we would expect a little bit longer time to sell. The return of price drop discussions will occur, it has already occurred. So we'll list at a price, we'll see what the market tells us about what's happening with the home, we'll adjust accordingly so we can sell your home in the timeline that works for you. It means the realtor that you hire is more important. Now, we're biased here because Bill has 22 years of experience in the business. I have a couple decades in the industry, but it makes a difference, right? In the old market, you could go to your best friend from high school that sells 5 homes a year and feel pretty comfortable that you're not going to leave money on the table. We would argue against that, and we have the stats to show you, but now it becomes really important. The marketing is really important. The relationships are really important. The negotiation, because the other thing that's coming back is negotiating through the inspection period, negotiating based off appraisals that might come in low. You need a seasoned professional that can help you through this market.
So that's what we think of 2023 and the upcoming year. Let us know if you agree, disagree, have any questions or comments. Go ahead and click below or reach out to us directly, and we'd love to help you out.
And make sure you hit the subscribe button to get more great market detail like this. Thanks for joining in.